10 powerful countries which were never ruled by British. Saudi Arabia. It was never invaded by the British Empire. It has an area of 2.15 million square kilometre. Since the advent of 16th century, it had the rule of the Ottoman Empire, one of the powerful empires. This was the reason British never tried to invade it. During the time of World War I, British Empire supported the royal family to defeat the Ottoman Empire, and this family is ruling Saudi Arabia now. Iran. British and Russian forces were interested in taking charge of present-day Iran, known as the Persian Empire back then. While Russia was successful in capturing parts of northern areas of the empire, present-day Turkmenistan, for example, in the 19th century. Similarly, British forces gained power in the eastern region of the Persian Empire, which is near present-day Pakistan. During this time, the vast majority of Iran was under rule of the Qajar dynasty, which had borrowed money from European banks. Unable to pay back the loan, the British and Russian governments came to an agreement that they would control and share Persian revenues from various sources. While the Persian Empire never agreed to this condition, it did prevent the country from being officially taken over by the British. Japan. Europeans discovered Japan in the 16th century, and started to penetrate it, while setting trade posts and converted the locals to Christianity. However, Japanese rulers recognized the risk early, and started effective resistance. They used drastic measures to counter the ones laid by the British. This way they managed to isolate the country almost completely until the middle of 19th century, and it was mainly due to the unity of Japan. In the 19th century it was penetrated again, but the Japanese managed to do what nobody else could. They quickly modernized their country themselves. In less than half of a century, they became a world power that nobody would easily colonize. Korea. Korea was a country that was in between the two great Asian powers of China and Japan. Korea had witnessed the events that took place in Japan and China, who had dealt with Western rule and had hoped that the same wouldn't happen to them. Korea didn't get into the hands of Western rule. It was primarily owing to its geographical location. It was right in the middle of two great Asian powers, Japan and China, that would constantly fight over Korea. But the most significant reason was that Korea didn't have much natural resources to offer to the Westerners, unlike Japan and China did. Thailand. Today it is one of the favorite tourist attractions in the world. It has a total area of 513,120 square kilometers. In those times it was known as the Kingdom of Siam. It had European colonies around it. The only reason that it was never ruled by the British Empire was the strategy of its king. He made good relations with them. In fact, they were so good that he also gave business profits to them, owing to which they became good partners, and British Empire never really tried to invade the country. China. China stands as one of the most powerful countries in the world. When the Europeans attempted to control the world, the Chinese Empire was an extremely large force. Its size was its biggest advantage, which made it a difficult target for colonization. Britain and France, rather than wanting colonial rule over it, were rather able to gain some power over China through its imports and exports. Afghanistan. Being aware about the intentions of British helped the Afghan military conquer the British Army in the First Anglo-Afghan War of 1839. Not the one to take defeat so easily, the British forces once again attempted to take control of Afghanistan in the Second Anglo-Afghan War, which lasted from 1878 to 1880. During this war, the Britons were able to negotiate control of the country's foreign relations while Afghanistan retained domestic control. Ethiopia. The most populated country of Africa. It is spread along 1.1 million square kilometre. British wanted to capture it but failed. The King of Ethiopia also wrote a letter to Britain for maintaining peace, but the Queen didn't answer, so the King of Ethiopia had put many Britishers into prison who were present in that country. Looking at this grim picture, the British Empire tried to invade it but failed, and Ethiopia won again. Later Italy also tried but failed to invade it. Bhutan. Bhutan has a difficult terrain which makes it doubly difficult for anyone to invade it. From 1772 to 1774, the British fought and gained control over some insignificant areas of the Kingdom of Bhutan. This control gave them the negotiating power. However, in exchange for removal of British troops, the Kingdom of Bhutan agreed to pay them 5 horses and agreed to give them control of its logging industry. Despite this arrangement, the two countries were in constant border disagreements until 1947, when India gained its independence and British forces withdrew from the area. Nepal. Nepal, like Bhutan, boasts of a challenging terrain for the outsiders to gain control. From 1814 to 1816 they fought the war with Britishers. While the British Army captured 30% of their mountainous region, Gorkha Army of Nepal were so determined that they kept on fighting and defeated Britishers. The geography of Nepal was also one of the reasons for the victory of the Gorkha Army. Unwilling to take on the rugged terrain of Nepal again, British forces left the rest of Nepal as an independent state, thereby creating a border zone for British India.